Welcome back to another BizBite episode of the eCommerce Badassery podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Datillo-Coster. Raise your hand if you feel like you're too in the weeds of your business, or maybe you're the bottleneck. If that's you, you probably realize it's time to hire your first or next employee or contractor. But how do you figure out what position to hire for? First things first, everyone's business and situation are different, so I can't give you any hard and fast answers about who you should hire without having more details. But let's talk through some things you should consider to get those wheels turning. When you sit down to figure out where you can use the most support, start by thinking of every task in your business as an hourly rate job. Not that you should be thinking of yourself as an hourly employee, but it will help you frame this in your mind. Then consider what your time is worth as the founder, CEO, and visionary of your business. As you go through the tasks and to-dos, ask yourself if you would pay someone your hourly rate to do that job. If the answer is no, it's a good thing to consider outsourcing. Now, of course, the earlier you are in your business, the more likely you'll be doing things that are below your pay grade. That's okay and totally normal. But as you grow, you should always have it in the back of your mind that eventually you'll pass this off to someone else. All right, so here are some things to think about. If you're a handmade business, other makers are likely to be the most beneficial hire for you. It doesn't have to be your hands that make the product. Many product-based businesses can also benefit from having fulfillment support. Do you really need to be the one packing and shipping orders? These can be a bit more difficult to hire out because they do have to be local. But at the same time, that can make it easier because you might be able to find a local college student who is happy to work a few hours a couple days a week. One of the hardest things to outsource, even though it's the most time-consuming, is social media and content creation. It can be really difficult to find someone who can capture your brand voice, and typically the ones who can are going to be more expensive. If your business can support it, great. If not, or at least not yet, I would focus on other things that are easier to outsource because the time, energy, and effort you spend trying to find the right person or coach them through it might not be worth your time right now. If you are any sort of expert or educator or the face of your brand, outsourcing content creation will be even more difficult. For instance, I can't outsource writing or creating these podcast episodes. Also, I work with an esthetician who has a very specific philosophy on skincare. It's going to be really hard for her to find someone who can write educational blog posts in the way she wants them written. She does, however, have someone creating her social content, but that content in most cases is coming directly from those blog posts. So that is another way you can approach it. But this doesn't mean that you can't get support in the process. Maybe you have to be the one to create the content, but you can hire someone to create and schedule the emails, design the graphics, schedule them to be posted. So create the content outside of the tool, for instance, writing an email or blog post on a Google Doc, and then you just have someone else actually load it into your email platform, add it to your site, put all the proper headings and links, etc. You could always create your social media captions as well, and then give some general direction of the creative you want to use, but have someone else create the graphics, load it into your scheduling platform, add the hashtags, all that good stuff. If you create YouTube videos, outsource the editing and posting. I create and record the content for this podcast, but I don't edit it. Just outsourcing part of the content production process can be a huge time saver. It will require you to stay ahead of the game with your planning and creation, though, because if you're using a part-time VA or someone on the internet, you can't expect them to turn things around at the last minute on the spot. You can also hire someone to engage with your audience on social. If you go this route, make sure you give them a brand voice document that outlines common phrases you use, things you never say, emojis you use or don't use, etc. Another thing to consider outsourcing is customer service. Now, this one can also be tricky. You'll want to do a little work up front to make sure you have some standard operating procedures in terms of how you handle certain situations, give them some canned responses, and clear lines on when they should reach out to you. But it is totally doable. I will say, though, if you're a small business, but you have a lot of customer service inquiries, I would start looking at those from a high level to figure out how you can actually decrease the number of inquiries you're getting. If you start to see patterns in the questions you're getting, How can you answer those before the customer has to reach out to you? Then, of course, there are more specialized things like bookkeeping, paid ads. These are things that you should understand enough to know when someone else is doing a good job, but are likely things you should definitely plan to outsource. Inventory management is another thing to consider. If you only have a one product store, maybe you don't ever have to outsource this, but if you have a wide assortment of product with lots of replenishment, multiple different vendors, and you're bringing in new arrivals all the time, that is something you can definitely hire for. Again, anything that is a specialized skill, there is likely to be someone out there who can do it better than you. So, those things, even if you can't hire right now because they're typically going to be more expensive for that person, put it on your to do list to outsource eventually. And then, what do you do if your business can't financially support this outsourcing? For instance, let's say you currently have a VA who sends one email per week to your list, but you want to send more. But to send more, you'd have to hire them for more hours, which you feel like you can't afford to do. So ask yourself this: for what it would cost you to bring that person on for more hours, would those additional emails generate enough revenue to pay for those additional hours? What about something that doesn't have such direct ROI like email? In that case, look at the time you're spending on this particular task. If you had that time back, could you spend it doing something that would bring in more revenue to cover the cost? And sometimes you're going to find yourself in a bit of a chicken and egg situation. The business can't support the person, but you can't get to a place where it can support that person without that person. In that case, you might have to hire a little bit before you feel ready. Maybe you have to build up a little reserve to get you through those first couple of months. Do that. It'll be worth it in the end. And then lastly, instead of bringing someone in on a recurring position, are there projects that you can outsource, whether in a done for you or done with you capacity? Maybe you've been slacking on getting your email automation set up. You can hire someone like me to do it for you. Maybe you've been meaning to switch your website to Shopify 2.0. You can hire someone to do that for you. Or maybe you want to get started with ads, don't really know what you're doing, can't afford to pay agency management fees though. In that case, you can work with someone like Nicole Dietrich in a done with you capacity where she teaches you how to do it, helps you build your audiences, gives you feedback on your ads, etc. There are a lot of ways you can get support in your business no matter what level you're at. So if you're struggling to get ahead, feeling overwhelmed, think you're spending too much time working in the business versus on it, now might be the time. When it comes to hiring, I think truthfully, most of us just get in our own way, and I'm guilty of this too. So set aside a little bit of time to just think through this. Start tracking how much time you spend on things. Start identifying what things are slipping through the cracks or not getting done the way you wish they were. Those are all signs that you need some help. And I'd love to hear what your biggest takeaway or aha moment was from today's episode. Is this sparking ideas for you? Please DM me on Instagram and let me know. And that's a wrap on today's BizBite episode. I hope you have a kick-ass rest of your day, and I'll see you on the flip side, friend.